The shower water pounded against my skin like accusations I couldn't rinse away, but nothing prepared me for the soft click of the bathroom door slicing through the steam. Garrett's silhouette filled the frame, his hazel eyes locking onto mine through the fogged glass. Best friends for a decade, but in that heartbeat, strangers with a hunger neither of us had named. Then, with a slowness that cracked the world open, he tugged his soaked t-shirt over his head, letting it slap wetly to the tile floor, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run from the truth we'd both been dodging. I froze under the spray, heart slamming harder than the water, my soapy hands hovering uselessly at my sides. "Garrett, what the— get out!" I stammered, but my voice cracked like cheap porcelain, betraying the lie. We'd crashed through college together in this crumbling Brooklyn walk-up, splitting rent and hangovers, the kind of bromance that made straight guys slap backs and gay ones like me swallow secrets. But lately, the air between us hummed with static, late-night confessions over whiskey, his hand lingering too long on my shoulder after a bad date, the way he'd stare when he thought I wasn't looking. And now this, him half-naked, stepping closer, the tattoo on his ribs. A compass rose we'd inked on a drunken dare in Austin, warped by shadows and steam. He didn't speak, just kicked the door shut behind him, the lock clicking like a loaded chamber. Water beaded on his skin as he crossed the threshold, jeans darkening at the hems, that crooked smile flickering like a glitch. "Alex," he murmured, voice rough as gravel under tires. "You think I haven't noticed? The way you look at me when you think I'm asleep." My breath hitched, the hot water turning scalding, mirroring the burn in my chest. I wanted to shove him out, to laugh it off as some post-shift haze. He was a firefighter, after all, adrenaline his middle name, but my body betrayed me, leaning into the spray that now enveloped us both. His hand found the shower knob first, twisting it cooler, the sudden chill raising goosebumps on us like shared confessions. We were chest to chest now, the space between us shrinking to vapor, his breath mingling with mine in mint and smoke bursts. "I've been waiting for you to say it," he whispered, fingers brushing my hip, tentative as a question. The world narrowed to that touch, electric, forbidden. The line we'd towed since freshman year when he'd pulled me out of a frat house brawl, blood on his knuckles and gratitude in my veins. But I pulled back, slamming the water off with a gasp. "This isn't. We can't. You're straight, Garrett. Remember Sarah? The wedding plans?" He winced, water dripping from his lashes like unshed tears. "Sarah was a distraction, a safe bet. But you—" His voice broke, and for the first time, I saw the fracture lines in the unbreakable Garrett haze. The golden boy from Ohio suburbs who'd traded cornfields for concrete jungles, chasing sirens and stability. We toweled off in silence, the bathroom a sauna of what-ifs, and by the time we collapsed onto the sagging couch with beers in hand, the moment hung between us like smoke from a doused fire. That night blurred into awkward normalcy. Take-out Thai scattering rice on the coffee table, some dumb action flick droning on Netflix, but the undercurrent pulled like a riptide. I stole glances at his profile, the sharp jaw I'd memorized in sleep, wondering if I'd imagined the heat in his eyes. By midnight, he was snoring on his end of the couch, one arm flung wide, and I slipped into my room, hard a war drum. Sleep evaded me, tangled in sheets that smelled of his cologne, until dawn cracked the blinds like a reluctant witness. The next week was a minefield of almosts. His thigh pressing against mine on the subway to work, a shared umbrella in the relentless October drizzle that soaked Manhattan's veins. I bartended at the Rusty Anchor, a dive in Williamsburg where hipsters nursed IPAs and secrets, slinging drinks to forget the what-ifs. Garrett swung by after shifts, all soot-streaked heroism, claiming the stool like a throne. "Double Jameson, neat," he'd say, our knees brushing under the scarred wood, conversations veering from engine fires to the ghosts we carried. His absent dad, my mom's slow fade into dementia back in Seattle. It was on a Friday, the bar pulsing with post-paycheck desperation, that Lewis walked in, tall with that effortless California glow, sun-bleached curls, ocean blue eyes that scanned the room like he owned the tide. He slid onto a stool and ordered a gin fizz with a smile that disarmed faster than a fire hose. "Rough night?" he asked, nodding at the foam-flecked chaos, and I laughed, the sound foreign in my throat. We talked easy, him a graphic designer from LA, crashing with cousins in the East Village, chasing freelance gigs and freedom. Openly gay, unapologetic, with stories of pride parades and bad hookups that made my cheeks burn. Garrett arrived mid-shift, clapping my shoulder a beat too long, his eyes narrowing at Lewis like he'd scented smoke. "Who's the pretty boy?" he muttered later, nursing his whiskey with a scowl that didn't match the easy grin he flashed the room. I shrugged it off, just a customer. But the jealousy coiled in his voice like a live wire, sparking something dangerous. By closing time, Lewis had my number scrawled on a napkin, and Garrett's silence on the walk home was a storm front rolling in off the Atlantic. Our first date was a revelation. Dim sum in Chinatown, steam rising from bamboo baskets like the ghosts of our unspoken hungers. Lewis's laugh was a melody, light and unburdened, his hand finding mine across the table without fanfare. "You're tense, Alex," he said, thumb tracing my knuckles. "Like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop." I wanted to spill it all, the shower, the almost kiss, the best friend who'd become a black hole of confusion. But instead, I kissed him in the alley behind the restaurant, his lips tasting of ginger and possibility. For the first time, I felt seen, not shadowed. Garrett noticed the shift immediately. Mornings grew strained, his coffee blacker, questions sharper. "Lewis again? Guy seems intense." I'd deflect with work stories, but the apartment shrank, walls whispering accusations. One night, after a double shift that left me hollowed, I came home to find them in the kitchen. Garrett shirtless again, that damn tattoo flexing as he chopped onions, Lewis perched on the counter with a beer, their laughter sinking like a betrayal I hadn't seen coming. "Alex!" Lewis beamed, sliding down to pull me into a hug that smelled of Garrett's soap. "Your roommate's a riot, telling war stories from the firehouse. Join us." Garrett's eyes met mine over Lewis's shoulder, a flicker of something raw, guilt, defiance. Before he turned back to the stove, we ate spaghetti carbonara at the rickety table, the air thick with marinara and tension. Lewis bridging gaps with charm while Garrett's foot nudged mine under the table, accidental on purpose. By dessert, store-bought tiramisu that stuck in my throat. I excused myself to the balcony, the city lights blurring through unshed tears. Out there, wind whipping off the East River, Garrett followed. "Hey," he said softly, leaning on the railing beside me, close enough that his warmth cut the chill. "You okay?" Seemed off in there. I stared at the bridges strung like jewels, voice steady despite the quake inside. "Just tired." "Lewis is. He's good, Garrett. Real." He nodded, jaw tight. Then, "Yeah, he is." The words landed like ash, and when he walked away, the door clicked shut with finality. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling. Lewis and I dove deep, nights tangled in his borrowed futon, mornings with coffee and sketches of tattoos he'd designed for me someday. He coaxed out my stories, the closet I'd cracked open in college, the fear that still lingered like smoke. "You're brave, Alex," he'd murmur, tracing my scars, literal from a bar fight, figurative from years of silence. But home was a battlefield. Garrett withdrew, shifts stretching into overnights, texts curt, "Out late. Lock up." When we did collide, it was polite shrapnel, passing the remote, sharing fridge space like wary animals. Then came the betrayal, sharp as shattered glass. It was Halloween, the city a riot of costumes and cheap booze, and Lewis dragged me to a warehouse party in Bushwick. Pulsing bass, bodies painted like fever dreams. Garrett showed, uninvited, in his firefighter gear minus the helmet, a red plastic axe slung over his shoulder. "Heard it was epic," he shouted over the music, clapping Lewis on the back too hard, eyes on me like a dare. We danced in a haze of strobe lights and spilled punch, the three of us a triangle teetering on collapse. Lewis pulled me close, hips grinding to some synthwave, but Garrett hovered, shots in hand, his laughter forced. Midnight struck, and in a blur of masks and madness, he cornered me in a shadowed hallway, breath hot with tequila. "Tell me you don't feel it," he growled, pinning me against graffiti-scarred brick, his mouth crashing into mine before I could breathe. It was fire, desperate, consuming, his hands fisting my shirt as if to anchor us both. But Lewis's voice cut through. "Alex." We sprang apart, Garrett vanishing into the throng like smoke, and there stood Lewis, face a mask of hurt that cracked my world. "What the fuck?" he whispered, storming out into the night, me chasing apologies into the cold. The fallout was biblical. Lewis ghosted for days, texts unread, until a curt "we need to talk" pinged my phone. We met at a diner off Bedford, fluorescent lights buzzing like accusations, his eyes red-rimmed over black coffee. "Garrett kissed me too," he said flatly, the words a gut punch. "Last week, after you left for work. Said it was a mistake, but, Alex, I thought we had something real." My vision tunneled, betrayal blooming hot and thorny. Garrett, playing both sides, chasing shadows while I bled truth. I confronted him that night, storming the firehouse where he was restocking gear, the air acrid with diesel and deceit. "You son of a bitch," I snarled, shoving him against the truck, his crew scattering like leaves. "Lewis? Him? After everything?" Garrett's face crumpled, hands up in surrender. "It was nothing, a drunk slip. But you. God. Alex, I've been in love with you since sophomore year. Watched you date assholes who didn't deserve you, swallowed it down because I was scared. Scared I'd lose the only family I have left." His confession hung there, raw as an open wound, and for a moment, I saw us. The road trips through the Badlands, blizzards in Chicago where we'd huddled for warmth, the quiet mornings when he'd brew my coffee just right. But the hurt eclipsed it, a tidal wave crashing. "You betrayed us both," I whispered, voice breaking. "Me by hiding. Him by using him to get to me." He reached for me, but I recoiled, fleeing into the rain-slicked streets, the city a blur of neon and regret. Days bled into a numb fog. Lewis forgave enough for closure, a tearful goodbye over falafel, promising we'd heal, maybe friends someday. "You deserve honesty, Alex," he said, hugging me fierce. "Don't settle for smoke." Alone in the apartment, I packed Garrett's shit into boxes, his Ohio State hoodie, the compass mug, leaving a note, "Out. Don't follow." Crashing on a coworker's couch, I drowned in shifts and solitude, the mirror reflecting a hollowed man. Winter gripped Brooklyn like a grudge, snow muffling the sirens that once defined us. I avoided the firehouse routes, the bars we'd haunted, but fate or masochism drew me to Central Park one sleet-lashed afternoon, seeking solace in the bare branches. There, under a pavilion slick with ice, sat Garrett, bundled in that damn hoodie, eyes hollow as mine. "Alex," he breathed, standing too fast, chair scraping like a plea. We talked for hours, words tumbling like the flurries. Apologies layered thick, truths peeled bare. He admitted the fear. A conservative family that had disowned his queer cousin, the badge that demanded armor. "I thought if I could just taste it with Lewis, it'd kill the want for you." Stupid. Selfish. I nodded, throat tight, the wind howling our regrets. "I loved you first," I confessed, the words a dam breaking. "But love isn't enough without trust." As dusk bled purple, he pulled a small box from his pocket. A silver compass, engraved with our initials, dangling from a chain. "Not to fix us," he said, voice cracking, "but to remind you, you always find your way." I took it, the metal cold against my palm, and in that fragile piece, we walked out together. Not lovers, not yet, but survivors charting north. Spring thawed the ice, tentative shoots pushing through concrete cracks. Lewis and I grabbed coffee, laughs tentative but real, his new boyfriend a quiet artist who sketched him mid-sentence. Garrett and I rebuilt slow. Texts about nothing, a pickup game in the park where elbows flew freer than words. One humid June evening, rooftop beers under a bruised sky, he leaned in, question in his eyes. "Can we try?" I searched his face, the compass warm against my chest, and nodded. Our kiss was soft, exploratory, No steam, no rush. Just two men choosing light over shadow. In the end, it wasn't fireworks or fate's cruel twist, but the quiet humanism of flawed hearts mending. America, with its endless reinventions, taught us that love as verb, not verdict. And in the steam of new mornings, we learned to see each other clear. The compass swung like a pendulum between us that first real summer, marking time in lazy loops as Garrett and I navigated the wreckage we'd made. New York baked under a relentless sun, the kind that turned sidewalks to griddles and tempers to tinder, but up on our fire escape, reclaimed after my prodigal return, the heat felt like absolution. We'd started small. Grocery runs where our carts collided like old times, his hand brushing mine over the avocados, a spark without the blaze. "Ripe enough?" he'd ask, voice laced with double meaning, and I'd roll my eyes, heart lighter than it had been in months. Work pulled us in opposite directions. Me slinging drinks till the wee hours, him chasing infernos that left him smelling of char and heroism. But evenings were ours, tentative rituals stitching us back. One night, post-shift haze clinging like second skin, I found him on the couch, sketchpad in lap, pencils scattered like fallen stars. "Lewis teach you that?" I teased, dropping my keys with a clatter. He glanced up, hazel eyes soft in the lamplight. "Nah, been doodling compasses. Figured I owed you one that doesn't point south." His drawings were rough, blocky lines capturing cityscapes we'd conquered, a firefighter silhouette against flames that looked suspiciously like embrace. We talked then, really talked, unpacking the debris. His Ohio roots, the preacher dad who'd preached fire and brimstone but fled when the bills came due. My Seattle ghosts, mom's blank stares in the nursing home mirror that echoed my own buried fears. "I was scared you'd bolt," he admitted, erasing a smudge with thumb's pad. "Like Dad, like everyone." I sat beside him, our knees knocking, and whispered, "I'm still here." That vulnerability cracked us open wider. Dates crept in disguised as hangs. Brunch at that hole in the wall in the village where Eggs Benedict ran yolky and gossip flowed freer than mimosa. Garrett, out of the closet now in fits and starts, drew stares. The burly firefighter with the easy grin, holding my hand across checkered cloth. "They think I'm punching above my weight," he'd joke, squeezing till my knuckles whitened. But the whispers stung less than the silence we'd endured, and slowly, the city reshaped around us. A mosaic of us. Lewis became the bridge we hadn't expected. A month in, he texted, "Coffee? No drama, promise." We met at a cafe in Soho, artisanal brews steaming like peace offerings, his new guy, Finn, with freckles like constellations and a laugh that boomed, tagging along as buffer. Awkward at first, recaps of betrayals traded like trading cards, but then stories spilled. Lewis's LA escapades, Finn's gallery shows in Chelsea, our shared scars from the warehouse night. "You two look good," Lewis said finally, clinking mugs. "Fragile, but good." Garrett nodded, arms slung casual over my chair. And for the first time, forgiveness tasted like vanilla latte, sweet, unexpected. But scars itch and summer storms brew fast. It hit during a weekend upstate, a cabin rental in the Catskills we'd snagged on a whim, wood smoke and wildflowers, a reset button pressed hard. The drive was all classic rock and bad puns, windows down to whip worries away. But by the lake's edge, bonfire crackling, old demons surfaced. Garrett, 3 beers deep, stared into the flames. "Remember Austin? That tattoo parlor, the Dare?" I nodded. The compass rose on his ribs, glowing ember orange. "We were invincible then. What changed?" "Us," I said, poking the fire till sparks flew like accusations. "We hid. From each other, from this." He pulled me close, lake lapping soft at the dock, his kiss tasting of hops and hearth. We made love there under stars pricked like promises. Slow, reverent, bodies mapping forgiveness in size and salt. But dawn brought the thunderhead. A call from the station, a warehouse blaze mirroring our past inferno. "Go," I urged, but his grip tightened. "Not without you." He stayed, and we hiked instead. Trails twisting through birch groves, sweat mingling with mist. At the summit, vista sprawling endless green to Hudson haze, he dropped to one knee, not with ring but resolve. Marry me? Not now, but someday. When we're ready. Laughter bubbled up, tears hot on my cheeks, and I tackled him into the ferns. Yes, tumbling free. Back in the city, life accelerated like a siren wail. Garrett's crew ribbed him gentle. Haze gone soft on the bartender? But pride swelled when he brought me to the annual barbecue. My hand in his under picnic tables groaning with ribs and relish. I met his sister, flown in from Cleveland, her hug fierce. Heard you saved his ass. Literally. Mom's visits via video calls brought her lucid days, her smile crinkling at our tales. My boys found his north. Yet conflict simmers in the best loves. A low boil threatening overflow. It started subtle. Garrett's shifts lengthening. Eyes shadowed with exhaustion not just from flames. Budget cuts, he'd mutter. Collapsing into bed smelling of strategy sessions more than smoke. Whispers at the bar filtered in. Union talks, brass pushing overtime to plug holes, firefighters stretched thin as the safety nets frayed. One night, post a close call he downplayed. A beam collapsed that singed his gear. He woke screaming, thrashing from nightmares of entrapment. I held him through it, whispers soothing like rain on tin, but the fear lodged deep. What if the job claimed him before we built our forever? Lewis, ever the oracle, called it during a group hike in Prospect Park. Leaves turning fire-kissed. Burnout's a bitch, he said, passing a water bottle slick with condensation. Finn's ex was a cop, same drill. Love him fierce, but make him choose life sometimes. Garrett overheard, jaw set like granite. And that evening, over pizza grease-slicked boxes, the fight erupted. I'm not quitting, he snapped when I broached therapy, voice echoing off our thin walls. This is who I am. Saving people. Like you saved me. Saving. I shot back, plate clattering to the counter. You're killing yourself, Garrett. For what? A badge that chews you up? Words escalated, barbs flying. His resentment at my safe job, my terror of widowhood in a love we'd barely begun. He stormed out, door slamming thunder, and I sank to the floor, sobs racking like aftershocks. Hours later, he returned, soaked from a downpour, collapsing beside me. I'm scared too, he murmured, head on my knee, of losing you to this. But it's us against the world, right? We sought counsel then, couple sessions in a midtown office, leather chairs creaking under truths unloaded. The therapist, a no-nonsense dyke with silver streaks, called it the hero trap. Unpacking how Garrett's armor hid fractures, how my love sometimes smothered. Progress was glacial, but real. He cut overtime, joined a peer support group where vets swapped scars over coffee. I learned to breathe through the worry, channeling it into sketches of our future. A brownstone in bed stewie, maybe kids via surrogacy, dreams doodled in margins. Fall deepened, colors bleeding crimson and gold, mirroring the richness we'd clawed back. Thanksgiving brought his family. Sister and her wife, a boisterous crew crammed around our table, turkey carved with laughter. Mom joined via Zoom, her eyes brighter, toasting to found families. Lewis and Finn crashed dessert. Pie plates piled high, stories weaving us tighter. Finn's latest exhibit, a series on queer resilience that left us hushed. But climax crests unbidden, a wave no dam holds. It crashed mid-December, a nor'easter blanketing the city in white fury, sirens howling through the gale. Garrett's pager screamed at 2 a.m., multi-alarm blaze in a tenement off Flatbush, holiday lights twisted in the roar. Stay put. He kissed my forehead, gear clanking like chains. I paced the apartment, TV flickering live feeds of orange hell against snow, heart a fist in my throat. Hours stretched eternal, coffee cold, until dawn's gray light brought the call. Stable, but shaken. I raced to the ER, corridors reeking of antiseptic and ash, finding him in a curtained bay. Bandages on his hands, face smudged but whole. Roof collapsed, he rasped, voice hoarse from smoke. Pulled 2 kids out. Thought of you, our summit, that yes. Tears carved tracks through the grime, and I climbed onto the bed, holding him as machines beeped our fragile rhythm. Recovery was a cocoon. Weeks of him sidelined, me playing nurse with broth and bad movies, our love distilled to quiet intimacies. Reading aloud from dog-eared Kerouac, his head in my lap, the union rallied, brass forced to reckon with the cuts, and Garrett emerged tempered, not broken. Advocating for better gear, mentoring rookies on balance. "You were right," he said one snowy eve, mittened hands tracing my jaw by window glow. "It's not just saving others, it's saving us." As winter waned, so did the sharpest edges. We rang in the new year on our rooftop, champagne fizzing under fireworks that painted the skyline electric. Lewis toasted from afar via video, to steam that clears, and in that moment, encircled by city's pulse, I knew. Betrayal's sting had forged something unbreakable. A love humanistic in its mess, romantic in redemption. Spring unfurled like a hesitant confession, cherry blossoms dusting Brooklyn sidewalks in pink confetti, mirroring the tentative bloom in our lives. Garrett's hands healed slow, scars like silver rivers across palms that once gripped hoses with godlike surety, but he wielded them now with purpose, sketching blueprints for change at union meetings that ran late into evenings scented with renewal. I'd wait up, pot of chili simmering on the stove, our apartment evolving. Bookshelves sagging under volumes on queer history, a pride flag thumbtacked above the bed like a vow. Dating deepened into domesticity, the kind American rom-coms gloss over but real lives cherish. Lazy Sundays at the farmer's market, haggling over heirloom tomatoes, his arm looped casual around my waist as vendors hawked honey and hope. "Pick your poison," he'd say, holding up jars sticky sweet, and I'd choose wildflower, kissing the drip from his finger with a wink that still sparked. Sex wove us closer, no longer frantic apology but exploration. Lazy mornings where sunlight slanted gold across sheets, his whispers tracing my spine like Braille secrets. Yet undercurrents tugged, subtle as undertow. Mom's decline accelerated, lucid days shrinking to slivers, her calls a litany of confusion. "Alex? Is that you, or the boy from the war?" Seattle loomed, a 5-hour flight heavy with dread, and Garrett sensed it, packing my bag with quiet efficiency. "We'll go together," he insisted, folding sweaters with care. "First class if I have to hijack the plane." His humor cracked the ice, but the trip was a gauntlet. Mom's facility a sterile maze of beeps and blank stares, her frail hand in mine evoking ghosts of bedtime stories and baseball mitts. She rallied once, eyes clearing like fog lifting off Puget Sound. "He treats you right?" she murmured, glancing at Garrett dozing in the vinyl chair. I nodded, throat thick. "Like gold, Mom. We're building something." Her smile was a gift, fleeting as firefly light, and on the flight home, turbulence mirroring my turmoil, I broke in the lavatory. Sobs muffled against sleeves, Garrett holding me wordless when I emerged. "Grief's a thief," he said later, over airport whiskey that burned less than tears. "But it doesn't steal the good." Back east, we channeled it into creation. Garrett enrolled in a part-time psych cert, bridging his worlds, firefighting's adrenaline with counseling's calm, while I toyed with writing, scribbling vignettes of our steam-shrouded start for a queer-lit zine that Lewis connected me to. Raw as hell, the editor emailed, and suddenly readings loomed. Smoky lounges in the Lower East Side, voices trembling over mics to crowds that nodded like kin. Garrett front row every time, his applause thunderous, pride swelling his chest till buttons strained. Summer scorched in again, humidity a heavy blanket, and with it came the first real test of our mended seams. His sister's wedding, back in Cleveland, a sprawling affair in a barn strung with Edison bulbs and white linen. Forced reckonings. "Mom's asking about plus ones," she texted, and Garrett froze, fork midway to mouth over pad thai. "They know about me? Us." His family was patchwork. Dad long gone. Mom remarried to a golf pro who golfed more than he parented. But the Midwest loomed conservative. Whispers of "don't ask, don't tell" echoing from his youth. We talked it through, pros and cons listed on a napkin like battle plans. Go and claim space or skip and let shadows linger. I want them to see you, he decided finally, chin set. The man who makes me whole. The drive was a pilgrimage. Interstates unspooling cornfields and billboards for Jesus Saves. His knuckles white on the wheel till we pulled into the driveway. Mom's hug enveloping like fresh-baked bread. Brought the better half, she beamed, winking at me, and just like that, the air lightened. The rehearsal dinner was a whirlwind. Aunts in floral prints cooing over cake, uncles grilling Garrett on station tales, me navigating with smiles and small talk that skirted the edges. But the ceremony, under a floral arch at sunset, his sister radiant in lace, stirred something profound. Vows exchanged like sacred fire. In sickness, health, all the mess in between. Garrett's hand found mine in the pew, squeezing till it ached. And as the couple kissed to cheers, he leaned in. That's us. Someday. The reception pulsed with joy. Hay bales for seats, bluegrass fiddling till feet flew. But conflict brewed in the shadows. A cousin, beer loose and loud, cornered Garrett by the bonfire. Heard you're, with him. That don't sit right with some folks. The words landed like embers, and I watched from afar as Garrett's shoulders squared, voice steady. Sits right with me. Love's love, cousin. Deal or don't. The man slunk off, mumbling, but the ripple spread. Stares across the dance floor. A gray tance pursed lips. We danced anyway. Slow to some country croon. His chin on my crown, whispers weaving through the twang. Proud of you, but later, in the guest room's quilted quiet, he unraveled. What if they cut me out? Like Dad did to Aunt Ellie? I pulled him close, heart hammering. Then we build our own. Stronger. Lovemaking followed, urgent and affirming. Bodies affirming what words couldn't. Us against the tide. Morning brought olive branches. Mom over coffee, eyes kind. Family's what you fight for, not flee from. His sister pulled me aside, bouquet in hand. Thanks for sticking. He's softer with you, better. The drive home was cathartic, windows down to whip away the weight, playlists of Springsteen belting anthems of blue-collar hearts. Fall semester kicked off with vigor. Garrett's classes a juggle of lectures and ladders, me diving deeper into writing, a short story on our shower epiphany landing in a lit mag that paid actual rent money. Lewis threw a launch party at his gallery gig. Wine flowing, walls hung with Finn's abstracts that swirled like emotions untamed. To Alex, the wordsmith, Lewis toasted, clinking glasses, and Garrett's arm around me felt like anchor in the revelry. But peaks precede valleys, and ours plummeted swift. A brutal call. Mom, gone in her sleep, peaceful as snow. Seattle summoned again. Funeral a blur of rain-lashed pines and eulogies that choked. Garrett stood sentinel, arranging flights, holding me as the casket lowered. His grief a mirror to mine, quiet and vast. She saw us? I whispered graveside, petals scattering on sodden earth. Knew we were real. Returning, hollowed, we leaned into ritual. Weekly calls to his mom, now a fixture. Therapy doubled down, unpacking loss's layers. Holiday lights twinkled early, a defiant glow, and we hosted our first Friendsgiving. Lewis and Finn, station buddies with wives who bantered bold. Table groaning under turkey and tofurkey. Toasts to the family we choose. Climax brewed not in blaze but betrayal's echo. A letter from Garrett's dad, postmarked Ohio, arriving unbidden. Heard about the wedding. And you, disgrace. The words seared, old wounds gaping, and he crumpled it in fist, eyes storm-dark. Fuck him, he growled. But the hurt festered, nights restless with what-ifs. We confronted it head-on. Bonfire in the park mimicking Cleveland's. Flames devouring the pages as we voiced the venom. He doesn't define us, I said, ash snowing soft. Garrett nodded, pulling me into embers' warmth. You're my compass. That night, under quilt of stars, we reclaimed power. Bodies entwined, love a liturgy against the dark. Winter whispered in, but we stood taller, roots delving deeper into Brooklyn's loam. New Year's Eve found us at a queer ball in Harlem, sequins and suits, ballroom steps learned clumsy but earnest. As auld lang syne swelled, his kiss sealed resolutions unspoken. Onward, together, human in our humanness. The new year dawned crisp and conspiratorial, frost etching filigree on our bedroom window like nature's own love letter. Garrett's psych cert advanced, case studies scribbled in margins of fire reports, his voice gaining gravitas at station briefings, where he'd counsel greenhorns on the mental grind. Burnout's the real killer, he'd say, earning nods from grizzled vets who'd long buried their cracks. Me, the words poured freer now, a novel outline taking shape on late nights, chapters chronicling queer odysseys through American sprawl, our story the spine. Domestic bliss deepened, quirky and quotable. Arguments over dishwasher loading that dissolved into tickle fights, grocery lists annotated with flirty asides. Milk. And you au naturel. We adopted a rescue mutt, Rusty, a wiry terrier with one ear cocked like perpetual surprise. His romps in McCarran Park a chaos of leashes and laughter, Garrett's throws fetching more than balls. Joy unbound. Travel beckoned. A road trip west to scatter Mom's ashes on the Sound, but detours wove whimsy. Chicago first. Deep dish devoured in a booth where we'd once crashed post-college. His hand over mine echoing that blizzard huddle. Full circle, he murmured, sauce smudged on his lip like a dare. I kissed it away, the diner din fading to our pulse. Denver next, mountains jagged as resolve, hiking trails where altitude tested lungs but love oxygenated souls. Atop a ridge, wind-whipped, we scattered petals for Mom, wildflowers she'd favored. Whispers carried on gusts. Rest easy. We've got this. LA shimmered last, Lewis's turf, where sun-soaked beaches blurred into bonfires with Finn, stories swapped till dawn. You two are disgustingly cute, Lewis ribbed, sand gritting our toes. Garrett's arm a casual claim, but beneath the glamour, old tensions surfaced. A producer at a rooftop mixer eyeing Garrett's build. Model potential, babe, sparking my insecurity flare. Jealous? He teased later, poolside under palm sway. Only of anyone who had you first, I admitted, and his kiss drowned the doubt, chlorine sharp and certain. Home re-entry Jared, city's clamor a rude alarm, but momentum held. Spring birthed Garrett's thesis, a paper on PTSD in first responders, published in a journal that landed him a TEDx slot in Boston. I tagged along, front row in a hall humming with intellect, his talk a masterclass in vulnerability. Slides of flames juxtaposed with therapy couches, voice cracking on the save that matters most is your own. Applause thundered, but his eyes sought mine, a private ovation. My writing crested too, a chapbook accepted by a small press, launch in a Greenwich Village bookstore that smelled of ink and ambition. Garrett emceed, voice booming anecdotes that had the crowd roaring. Our shower hook retold PG, earning blushes and cheers. Lewis reviewed it glowingly for some lit blog, a steampunk romance for the soul. Sales trickled, enough for a weekend in the Hamptons, where dunes whispered secrets and we walked barefoot, plotting sequels and adoptions. Yet harmony harbors hurdles, and ours reared subtle. A fertility consult, broached over brunch mimosas turning flat. Kids? He'd floated, tracing my forked tines. Surrogacy, adoption, whatever fits. The idea thrilled and terrified, evoking futures painted vivid. Little feet pattering on hardwood, bedtime tales of two dads daring. But clinics loomed clinical, paperwork a labyrinth, and the first appointment, a sterile suite in Midtown, left us shell-shocked. Odds, options, costs stacking like indictments. You're enough? I reassured that night, tangled in sheets, but doubt seated. Garrett withdrew into work, shifts a shield, while I overcompensated with puppy playdates and plot twists. The rift widened, small fissures, forgotten anniversaries of our first real date, texts curt as telegrams. Culmination cracked during a heat wave, apartment a sweatbox, Rusty panting at our feet as words escalated over takeout, cooling congealed. I want this us expanded, he insisted, voice strained. But you're pulling back, Alex. Scared. Fury flared, hot as the haze. Scared? Of what? Turning into my mom, chasing ghosts while you play hero dad. We barely survived betrayal. Now this. He recoiled, eyes flashing hurt. That's not fair. I'm all in. The door loomed, but instead, he crossed to me. Embrace a truce. We're scared together. That's the point. Therapy reloaded, sessions dissecting dreams deferred, societal scripts of fatherhood queered, progress pearled slow, support groups for prospective gay parents, stories of families forged fierce, trips to farms where kids romped rainbow, hope rekindled, tentative as first light, and by autumn's amber, we submitted adoption inquiries, heart's hopeful pendulums. Winter wove wonder anew, holidays hybrid, his mom's Ohio for turkey, ours for tree trimming with Lewis's crew, ornaments clinking like chimes. New Year's resolution. A vow renewal, intimate at City Hall, witnesses Finn and a station pal. Rings simple bands etched with compass points. North to you, Garrett breathed, slipping mine on, and the kiss sealed it, bureaucratic but blissful. Spring 2026 bloomed buoyant, Rusty's wagging a metronome to our stride. Garrett's TED Talk went viral light, invites flooding for panels on mental health and macho trades, his face on podcasts that paid residuals. My chapbooks buzz birthed a novel deal, agent lunches and lofts overlooking the Hudson, Garrett toasting with craft beer, my wordsmith. But life's script twists unscripted, and betrayal's specter slunk back. Not from within, but without. A tabloid tidbit, sparked by his rising profile. Firefighter hero's queer romance. From bromance to bedroom? Grainy shots of our park walks, whispers from Cleveland kin twisted toxic. Hate mail trickled. Slurs scrawled on envelopes, voicemails venomous. And Garrett hardened, badge a buffer. Ignore it, he'd say, but sleep evaded nightmares of outings old shame. I rallied us, op-ed penned for a queer site, love in the spotlight, why we won't dim. Published prime, it trended, allies amplifying, letters now of support, from closeted firefighters to Midwest moms proud. Lewis orchestrated a counter-event. Gallery show of Finn's work, theme visible. Proceeds to LGBTQ plus youth shelters. We headlined. Hands clasped on stage, voices united. This is us. Unapologetic. Climax crested in crisis. A call from the adoption agency. Match made. A newborn boy, bio mom choosing openness, due any day. Elation crashed into panic. Nursery half-rushed. Garrett's schedule a snarl. My deadline's looming. Labor Day dawned frantic. Hospital vigil a blur of coffee and contractions. Until cries pierced. Tiny, fierce, hours. Elias. They named him after Garrett's gran. Swaddled in our arms. Eyes squinting at the world we'd shield. Fatherhood floored us. Diapers daisy-chained with delirium. Nights fragmented but full. Elias's coos were symphonies. His grip on our fingers a pact. Betrayal's echoes faded to footnotes. Love's labor the true drama. Messy, profound. American in its audacious dream. Elias arrived like a comet, streaking our lives with chaotic light. His wails a wake-up to a world remade. Those first months were a delirium of feedings at 3 a.m. Tiny fists flailing against bottles warmed in moonlight. Garrett and I tag-teaming like a well-oiled engine. Him burping with biceps gentle as whispers. Me rocking to half-sung lullabies from my mom's repertoire. The apartment transformed. Bassinet crowding the couch, walls papered in alphabet blocks, our love letters tucked in drawers for quieter days. Paternity leave stretched generous for Garrett, station covering shifts with gruff well-wishes. Don't drop the kid. Haze. And we cocooned, walks in stroller-pushing procession through Fort Greene's brownstones. Strangers cooing, he has your eyes. Mine? Hazel-flecked, or, that chin's all dad. Garrett's, stubborn cleft. Sleeplessness bonded us deeper, confessions crooned over colic. Never knew exhaustion could feel this electric, he'd murmur, Elias nursing content at his chest. Work wove back wary, me to the bar. Nights shorter now with pump-and-dump rituals, patrons toasting Uncle Alex with mock salutes. Garrett to flames, but tempered, counseling integrated into runs. Elias's first smile came mid-crisis. A warehouse tickle fight where Garrett goosed my ribs, baby's gummy beam dissolving us to puddles. Our little anarchist. Lewis dubbed him at a park picnic. Fins snapping candids that captured the sprawl. Blanket picnics. Wine sippy cups. Rusty herding ducks with yips. Milestones mounted like victories. First roll at 4 months on a playmat strewn with fire trucks. Garrett filming teary-eyed. Solids at 6. Pureed peas smeared triumphant across chubby cheeks. Mom's absence ached keener, but we honored her. Seattle trips to the sound. Elias splashing shallows where she'd scattered petals. Her stories are heirloom. Grandma loved the water, I'd say, and his gurgles seemed replies. Conflict crept in camouflaged. Aspirations double-edge. My novel deal demanded deadlines. Desk commandeered in the living room. Elias's nap times my narrow window. Words flowing fitful amid monitor beeps. Garrett's panels proliferated, travel tempting. A conference in San Fran. Another in Austin, the city of our ink. Go, I urged, but envy nipped. Night solo with Baba battles, resenting the siren call of spotlights. The fracture faulted during a rare date night. Italian in Little Italy. Candle wax dripping like delayed tears. Elias farmed out to Lewis's watchful eye. You're drifting, I accused over tiramisu, fork-stabbing cream. Conferences, consults. Am I raising him alone? He reached across damask, voice low. You're my anchor, Alex. It's for us. For showing Elias a dad who fights for more than fires. Vulnerability vented. We recommitted. Date jars drawn weekly. Scribbled promises like, stargaze on the roof. Summer sizzled with Elias's baptism. Not religious, but ritual. A park ceremony with queer elders. Water from the Gowanus splashed symbolic. Rings exchanged anew under oak shade. Family converged. Garrett's mom beaming gran-gran. Sister toting niece in tow. Lewis officiating with Finn's ringside sketches. Vows voiced soft. Through colic and chaos, I choose you. Elias, in tiny overalls, gummed the mic, eliciting laughs that sealed us sacred. Fall foliage framed growth. Elias crawling commando across carpets. Garrett's book deal inked on his PTSD tome. My novel galleys glowing with edits. But betrayal's ghost, long banished, resurrected sly. An ex from Garrett's straight days, Sarah of the almost wedding, emailing olive branches via mutuals. Congrats on the family. The note read, innocuous but insidious, dredging doubts. She means nothing, he swore, deleting threads, but insecurity slithered. What if straighter shores called? Confrontation cooked slow, simmering to boil over bath time. Elias splashing suds, me silent seething till words burst. Is this pity? The gay experiment after her. He scooped the baby dripping, face thunderstruck. Experiment? Christ, Alex, I've burned bridges for us. Sarah's past. You're my present, future, all. Tears mixed with bathwater. Apologies air-dried on towel-wrapped hugs. Therapy tripled to excavate roots. His fear of inadequacy. My scar from the Lewis tangle. Healing hummed harmonious post-purge. A deeper dive into us. Winter wrapped Elias's first birthday. Balloons bobbing in our now spacious two-bed. Cake smeared joyous across faces. Guests a tapestry of loves. Station crew with kiddie trucks. Lewis unveiling a custom portrait of our trio. Compass rose halos. Toasts tiered. To the boy who glued us gold. Climax crowned in quiet catastrophe. A fever spiking Elias to 103. Air dash at midnight. Rain lashing windshields like lashes. Waiting room purgatory stretched eternal. Garrett pacing linoleum worn by worries. My prayers pagan pleas to fates we'd tempted. Doctors swarmed. IVs dripping deliverance. Diagnosis viral but vanquishable. Dawn found us curled in a recliner. Elias cooling on my chest. Garrett's hand over ours like canopy. We almost, he choked, and I shushed. But we didn't. We're unbreakable. Recovery rekindled reverence. Sick days savored in snuggles. Gratitude journals penned in tandem. Elias's laugh. Your hand in mine. This fight. Spring spurred expansion. Adoption of a sibling sister. Toddler Tessa with curls like corkscrews. Her arrival a whirlwind of sippy cups and sibling squabbles that softened to snuggles. Years blurred benevolent. Elias toddling to school with backpack comically large. Tessa's tantrums tamed by Garrett's goofy songs. Our love the steady bassline. My novel hit shelves. Signings in indie shops where fans queued for the Steam guy. Garrett beaming paternal. His book sparked reforms. Mandated mental health days in departments nationwide. A legacy etched in lives spared. Betrayal's chapter closed canonical. A footnote in our epic. The shower that steamed secrets. The warehouse waltz of wants. All alchemized to gold. Lewis married Finn in a beach bash. Us best men in linen suits. Elias ring-bearer scattering petals profligate. Full circle, Garrett whispered, sand shifting under vows. In the humanistic hush of middles, Elias's graduations looming, Tessa's twirls and tutus, we reflected on the arc. America's promise, flawed but fertile, where two boys from disparate coasts forged family from fracture. No tidy bow, but a tapestry textured, dramatic in depths, emotional in ebbs, romantic in returns, ever northbound. One evening, porch swing creaking in a Hudson Valley home we'd claimed. Brownstone traded for green. Elias and Tessa Abed. Garrett pulled me close, compass chain glinting. Worth every steam, he murmured. And I nodded, kiss lingering like dusk. In that American dream deferred no more, we were home.